Hey friends, welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. This is the podcast where we talk about life, love, money, careers, and everything else in between. And happy New Year. Today is January 2nd, but only if you're listening to this on January 2nd. I'm actually recording this on January 1st. I wanted to do the first episode of the year on the first day of the year. This is a tie-in to the previous episode, which was about reflecting on 2025 without beating yourself up. We covered some categories like relationships, career, family dynamics, therapy. We're going to cover those topics again, but on the flip side, going into 2026. So a little bit more about like goal setting and moving forward as opposed to reflecting. So these are kind of companion episodes. And truthfully, a lot of the stuff I'm really reiterating, and I also think that's really important when you are goal setting to kind of go over the same things a few times so that you can really lock it in your brain. So some stuff will sound familiar, but again, think of it as moving forward as opposed to looking back. So as I was saying, we're talking about all the things, but in a way that does not make you want to crawl under a blanket and cry, hopefully. We know that right now, every corner of the internet is screaming, new year, new me. And if you're like me, that phrase comes with a little bit of panic and shame and existential dread. And I kind of use it jokingly all the time when I'm maybe being a bitch and I'm like, new year, new me, or same me. So yes, today's approach is a little different. This episode is your guide to setting up 2026 with intention, clarity, and of course, a little bit of, say it with me, cunt. We're going to cover mental health and therapy, physical fitness and money and financial health, love and relationships, career growth, all those other must fix, quote unquote, must fix areas of life. But here's the thing, we're doing it in a grounded, practical way. I'm going to say this a lot throughout the episode. There's no shame here. There's no highbrow nonsense. There's no be perfect or else kind of energy. Just tools, stories, exercises, and science-backed strategies to help you move into the new year feeling empowered, motivated, and maybe even a little more peaceful and free. But before we get into it, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. Head on over to my website to submit your listener stories, topic suggestions, or just show me some love and buy some merch. hotairwithjoshuarobert.com. It's the best way to support the show and look super cute while you're doing it. So grab a notebook, maybe grab a coffee or a cheeky little drink. This is the Hot Air New Year Better Me edition, and we're about to make 2026 your most intentional, calm, and fun year yet. So cheers to 2026, and let's hit it. Part 1, mental health and therapy, resetting your nervous system for the new year. Okay, let's start where it really matters. Your brain, that thing inside your noggin, your nervous system, your mental health. Because let's be honest, if that is fried, everything else, the money, the gym, the dating, the career growth is basically just putting lipstick on a very stressed out pig. And yes, I mean it. Truly. That's the January truth nobody wants to admit. Everyone is shouting, new year, new me, like all over Instagram, all over every ad you're going to see in between YouTube videos. But what you really need is new year better coping or new year better me. Not a new personality, not a new hobby, not a new relationship, just better support for the one you already have, which, spoiler alert, is still learning how to function in a world that doesn't make it easy. That's something that really resonated with me when I was trying to think about my 2026 goals. I do like creating resolutions and lists. I have constant lists every single day about all kinds of different things. But I was looking back at 2025 after I did the 2025 episode that came out last week. And I was thinking, I did so much work on myself last year, career-wise, dating a little bit here and there, not successfully, but whatever. And figuring out relationship dynamics within family and friends, ones that were and were not serving me, going to therapy and really dedicating that 1 hour every week in person with my therapist. I looked at 2025 and I was like, holy shit, I've evolved into this new human and I don't need to be a brand new human again in 2026. So I just want the support and the career and the relationship and the money and all the good things that support the version of me that I am now, instead of thinking about building a brand new version of whoever you want to be. And on that note, here's a little bit of science behind it. Our brains are prediction machines. They're always scanning for threats, making sure that you survive. That's great if you're in the savannah being hunted by a lion, like less great if your threats are emails, social media, and the vague sense that everyone else is killing it except for you, which is a feeling that most of us can relate to. Chronic stress changes your amygdala, your hippocampus, and your prefrontal cortex. Translation in English, your emotional alarm system is getting louder, your memory and focus might be off, and your ability to make calm, thoughtful decisions goes down the drain. This is why you can know better and still spiral. It is biology, not weakness, not failure, just neurons doing their job in a system that's a little bit overloaded pretty often. And therapy, believe it or not, is not magic, although sometimes it does feel pretty magical. It's not going to suddenly make anxiety disappear, but it works in a way that your brain loves. Repeated exposure to safety, validation, and witnessing. Literally hearing someone say, I see you, you're not broken, that makes sense, over and over changes your nervous system. Studies show that social support regulates the nervous system, lowering cortisol levels and improving emotional regulation over time. That is why a single therapy session might make you feel more raw than it does fixed. Your brain is learning that vulnerability is not catastrophic. You're safe enough to feel, and that takes a lot of practice. Took me a while to really warm up to therapy. And when I found my new therapist, I did go in guns a-blazing, but I have seen the shift in myself, the willingness to be more open and share what I'm actually feeling and what I'm actually thinking instead of sugarcoating it, because a therapist is there to really hear you out, and you should not have to sugarcoat anything when you're communicating with your therapist. But that does take time to get to that point. So when I did start going to therapy many years ago, before I took a very long break between going to therapies, I was thinking that I'd be fixed in like a few sessions, right? I thought, I'm smart, I can solve this, we'll figure out my issues and move on. And 2 weeks in, I was more aware than ever, more emotional than ever, and honestly more annoyed than ever. Therapy did not calm me, it woke me up. And the truth is, that's exactly how growth works. However, I did not stick with it, but then I went through that process again when I went back to my new therapist. But awareness comes first, change comes second. Research in emotional regulation shows that naming emotions actually increases distress briefly before lowering it long term. That's why the, oh my God, I'm worse than before phase is completely normal, and why quitting early is so common. Something I swore to myself I would not do this time when I went back to therapy, and it has been an entire year, and I'm still sticking to it. I'm now down to every other week because your boy ain't made of money, okay? I like to think I am sometimes, but therapy is not cheap. And I also have no insurance. But stick with it. People that are like, oh, I'll just go for a little bit, or couples counseling. Like I did that with my ex before. We got 8 sessions. I don't even think we finished those. We're not together, so we weren't really committed to that. But you have to have a goal of saying, I'm going to do this for a whole year. Stick with it, even on the days that I did not want to go to therapy, when I was like, things are going well. I went anyway, and we still discussed positive things. And that was very affirming to me. It made me feel good. There's other sessions where I left feeling kind of shitty because I just laid a bunch of shit out on the table. But really, just try to commit. Give yourself 90 days minimum of weekly sessions just to see the shift. And I can almost guarantee you will continue going. So now let's talk tools, stuff that actually works, grounded in research that listeners can use immediately. The first one is the "What does this feeling need?" tool, based on CBT and ACT principles. Instead of asking, how do I stop this feeling? Ask, what is this feeling trying to protect me from? Anxiety often wants certainty or control. Sadness wants rest, comfort, or connection. Anger wants boundaries. You don't fight the feeling, you respond to its message. So, for example, if Sunday night anxiety hits, which Most of us get the Sunday scaries. As soon as the sun starts going down, you're like, fuck, I gotta go to work tomorrow. Don't just breathe and hope it passes. Ask yourself, what is triggering this? What could I do to feel safer this week? What boundary could I set? Even those tiny actions, planning one small thing for Monday, sending a message, making a list, give your nervous system evidence that it's safe to relax a little bit, especially on that Sunday evening. You know you're going most likely into a stressful work week. Like, take a load off. Like, give yourself something to look forward to on Monday. Another tool is emotional labeling, which is shockingly underused. Science shows that putting words to feelings, I feel anxious, I feel overwhelmed, I feel frustrated, actually decreases amygdala activity. You're not overthinking, you're self-regulating, and it is a simple habit. When an intense emotion hits, pause for 30 seconds and label it specifically. Avoid vague generalizations like I'm sad or I'm stressed. Dig into the nuance. Your brain loves specificity. That was hard for me to say. Specificity. So pairing this with journaling or voice notes, I love creating voice notes about what I'm feeling and thinking. It creates a record of patterns over time, which is helpful for therapy, coaching, or just understanding yourself. Sometimes when you got to vent into your phone, listen to it back, and it's almost like you're therapizing yourself. So here's an example. Imagine your week has been heavy. You notice yourself snapping at a friend, scrolling Instagram mindlessly, or staring at your ceiling at 3 a.m. because who hasn't done that? Instead of yelling at yourself, try this. Just pause, label the feeling, whatever that feeling is, and check in. Am I tired? Am I overwhelmed, lonely, anxious about the week ahead? Pick one small corrective action for what you discover. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk. Maybe texting someone who feels safe, or simply scheduling 5 minutes of doing nothing. These micro interventions are cumulative. Over weeks and months, your nervous system learns that discomfort doesn't have to escalate to absolute panic. And let's be clear here. The goal is not to be happy all of the time. That is a trap. We have a very broad spectrum of feelings. Happiness can be fleeting. Emotional fluency is the goal. Someone who knows what they're feeling doesn't shame themselves for it, and has at least two tools to self-regulate when things get heavy. That is a human who moves into the new year already ahead of the game. You can make incremental progress, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, one step, and it compounds faster than forcing a brand new me, new year, new me resolution that absolutely crashes and burns by February. And while we're at it, here's a few more expert-backed suggestions. Mindfulness practices have tons of research behind them for anxiety and depression. Even 3 to 5 minutes a day helps a lot. Progressive muscle relaxation reduces cortisol, somatic awareness, noticing tension in your shoulders, your jaw, or stomach, which is going to come into play on the next episode with my very special guest. So make sure you stay tuned. This is literally training your nervous system to notice safety versus threat. Small daily rituals matter more than heroic weekend marathons of journaling or meditation. Consistency beats intensity, always. Part 2. Physical fitness, gym culture, and wellness fads. Movement without shame. All right, let's move on to the body. And yes, I mean literally moving it. But before you panic about new year, new body, let's slow down. January fitness culture is loud. It is aggressive, and honestly, it's a little bit sad. Suddenly, everyone's social media feed is a competition of ab shots, macro meals, detox teas, and new gym gear like it's going to solve world hunger or something. It is pretty exhausting, and it's not even January 3rd yet. Here's the deal. Your body is not a problem to solve. It's a system to support. That is a huge distinction. And it's the difference between sticking to a movement of routine or throwing your yoga mat across the room by February, or maybe setting it on fire, which is probably really bad for the environment. So don't do that. And especially not if it's an expensive Lulu one. Okay. You can sell that. Facebook Marketplace. The science about this is boring, but true. Movement is medicine. Regular exercise supports cardiovascular health, mood regulation, cognitive function, bone density, metabolic health, all of it. Here's the part people skip. Your enjoyment matters as much as your sweat. If you hate the activity, your brain associates movement with stress and shame or punishment, and your nervous system rebels. That is why so many New Year, New Me resolutions crash by mid-January. The research is very, very clear. People stick with what they enjoy. And if you can't see me on YouTube, I'm like laughing because it's like, duh, find something that you really like. Why are you going to do something that you hate? If you don't want to lift weights, although that is very important. If you don't want to lift weights and you hate it, maybe get a trainer that's going to show you how much you can love it. Or maybe you should go to Pilates instead. Maybe try yoga. Maybe you try something new every week until you find that thing that inspires you and that you think you can stick with. So yes, people stick with what they enjoy, not what tortures them. Social connection, identity alignment, and consistency are stronger predictors of adherence than intensity or trendiness. I went through a phase a very long time ago where I signed up for a ridiculously expensive gym, convinced I'd suddenly enjoy squats and spin class, only to show up once a week, miserable, resentful, and guilty, and really not even wanting to be there. This is ages ago before I really got educated about health and wellness. But eventually, I switched to just like walking outside while listening to a podcast or music and casual resistance work at home with like resistance bands, whatever I could afford at the time. And suddenly, I actually moved regularly. The difference wasn't effort. It was fun. It was something sustainable. It was movement that did not feel like punishment. And that actually led me into more weightlifting, more yoga classes, also an expensive gym, but that I actually enjoy going to now. You want movement that you can repeat, not something that makes you hate yourself before lunch. So now let's get into some fads like cold plunges, red light therapy, vibrating plates, juice cleanses, CBD, wearable trackers, breathwork protocols, biohacking experiments. Yes, all the shiny stuff. Some of it I actually very much enjoy, and some of it has evidence. Cold exposure has research showing it can improve mood and reduce inflammation. Red light therapy can aid in recovery and cellular function. Breathwork influences the parasympathetic nervous system. But there's a kicker, as there always is. None of this is going to outperform the basics. Sleep, nutrition, hydration, and consistent movement are the bedrock. Fads are the icing. And sometimes the icing is sold as the whole damn cake. An evidence-based tool here is habit stacking for movement. James Clear popularized this in Atomic Habits, but in very plain terms, tie movement to something you already do. Listen to a podcast on your daily walk. Stretch while waiting for your coffee to brew in the morning. Do squats while you're brushing your teeth. Tiny movement is going to add up, and your nervous system learns that movement equals something manageable, not punishment. That's why I love when I get to the gym. I actually get excited because I get to put on my favorite true crime podcast that I haven't listened to yet, and that's what I use through most of my workout. Another useful framework comes from the Nagoski sisters, Emily and Amelia, in Burnout. They show how overtraining and stress combine to shut down motivation. Exercise should add energy, not take it away. And small, consistent steps beat this heroic reset of a marathon every time. 1 hour of moderate movement 3 times a week beats a full spin and hot yoga schedule that you absolutely hate. Let's talk concrete examples. You could set a goal like walk 10,000 steps 3 days a week, but make it flexible. Track steps, not performance, or 2 strength sessions per week at home or the gym. Pick something achievable, something repeatable and aligned with your schedule. If the gym is intimidating, at-home bodyweight work plus outdoor walks is completely valid. Your nervous system doesn't care if it's trendy, only you do. It cares that you consistently stimulate it, that you build resilience, and you release stress. You could throw on a YouTube yoga video at home that's 20 minutes long, and that is sufficient and a good start. Now, on the flip side of this, for the more experimental folks, kind of like me, cold plunges can help with alertness, mood, and inflammation. Red light therapy does support mitochondrial function and recovery, but neither replaces protein intake, hydration, or basic sleep. Wearable trackers are fantastic for feedback if you use them mindfully, not for comparison. Track your movement to see trends, not to guilt yourself. I know a lot of people who are really, kind of like me sometimes, really stuck on their Apple Watch and just like, oh, I got to get to this certain amount of calories. Or like, it's good to have these goals, but like, don't beat yourself up about that. It's not that deep. I find it helpful when it's like, you should stand up every hour and it vibrates and tells me to stand up. Or it's like, oh, you're almost at your workout goal for the day, like go for a walk. So it does have these positive benefits, but just don't get too intense about that Apple Watch. Here's another example from way back when. I tried a cold plunge routine once because everyone was posting about it. I lasted like 10 seconds. I also did this with the cold shower trend, but of course I panicked because I'm like, this feels terrible. But what I realized is that the intention, like actively challenging the nervous system safely, was more important than perfection. So that 10 seconds I lasted was good enough. And the takeaway, you don't need extreme protocols to get the benefits. Intentionality, curiosity, and repeated exposure matter more. Even 5 minutes in the shower with that slightly cooler water can shift your nervous system, especially if paired with slow, controlled breathing. And now my little trick is I put on a song that I really like, and it's usually Pink Pony Club. That is the amount of time that I want to spend in the cold plunge. I hit play, I jump in, I breathe, and it makes it go by so quick because I'm actually enjoying it because I'm listening to a song that I can jam out to. And let's talk a little mindset shift here. Stop framing exercises as punishment. Start seeing it as nervous system calibration. Movement releases your tension, it improves mood, and gives you measurable wins, all without tying it to your appearance. That's why even low intensity, repeated movement beats these heroic transform my life sessions that happen once in a blue moon. That is not sustainable. So here's the bottom line. In 2026, your body is not a project. It is a system that you support. Fads are icing, the basics are cake. Sleep, hydration, consistent, enjoyable movement, and small recovery practices win every time. That is your cake. Your goal isn't Instagram-worthy results. It's sustainable, nervous system-friendly health that makes all other goals easier to reach. And let's be very real. Again, what you see on Instagram is not the truth. Everyone can edit a six-pack. Everyone has the apps to fix their face and change their body, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't use it before. And I see a lot of these fitness influencers at my gym here in San Diego, and they do not look like what they look like on Instagram, with the lighting, with the Photoshop, with the slight manipulation of how big their muscles actually are. So focus in on you, find something you enjoy, and just track your small wins in the gym. Part 3, money and financial health, calming the brain around cash. All right, let's talk about money. And before you panic, I know you probably just glanced at your bank account and felt a little twitch in your soul. Money is emotional. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Anyone who says otherwise is either lying, has a trust fund, or is Elon Musk, okay? Financial stress activates the same part of your brain as physical danger. That is wild. Amygdala lights up, cortisol spikes, and suddenly checking your balance feels like preparing for battle. And avoidance makes it worse. Awareness makes it manageable. That's the first thing to understand about money in 2026. Your brain is not being dramatic. It is just being honest. A few years ago, and sometimes still to this day, I avoid looking at my checking account for like a week. I knew that bills were due. I knew I had expenses piling up, but I did not want to deal with it. It would give me so much stress. That week, though, felt like a slow motion panic spiral. I was anxious, irritable, and convinced that I was failing as a human being. And when I finally logged in, the numbers were not great, but they were not catastrophic either, which is also really nice because then you log in and you're like, oh, I've got more in there than I thought. But just seeing them reduced a little bit, the panic set in immediately. This is backed by so much research. Uncertainty is worse for stress than actual outcomes. The moment that you gain clarity, even if it's a lower number, your nervous system begins to relax. Knowledge is literally power in biology terms. Behavioral psychology shows us that financial health is more about systems than willpower. Automation, for instance, removes decision fatigue. Set up automatic bills, automatic savings, automatic debt payments. I just remembered I have to pay my Best Buy credit card and my Citibank credit card. Whoopsie, suddenly your nervous system doesn't have to worry about forgetting a payment or missing a due date, and I am going to set that auto pay right when I'm done recording this. Studies consistently show that automation reduces anxiety and improves consistency in financial behavior. You don't have to feel motivated every month to save. The system does it for you. And I'm pretty sure I said this on the previous episode. You can also automate transferring some money to your savings or rounding up and putting that into your savings. There's other ways, not just about paying your bills. Values-based budgeting is another tool that actually works without shame or restriction. Instead of cut everything, live on kale, and hate yourself, ask, what matters to me and where am I okay spending? This is psychology backed. Aligning behavior with values increases satisfaction and adherence. So, for example, if you value connection, maybe $50 a month for coffee dates is non negotiable. If you value travel, maybe you trim subscriptions to fund a weekend trip. By defining priorities, you reduce stress and increase meaning. There's a book by Morgan Housel that's called The Psychology of Money, and it breaks this down beautifully, showing that most financial stress comes from behavioral patterns, not math. And here's another fun little exercise that I use for this. Pick one financial behavior to track for a complete month. It could be logging expenses or checking your account weekly or saving a fixed amount automatically. Track progress without judgment, just awareness. If you mess up, you mess up. Behavioral science shows that this alone improves perceived control and reduces anxiety. And again, celebrate the wins. Didn't overspend this week? That's a win. Set aside $20 for savings automatically? That's a win. Made a mistake? Not a failure, just data. When I started using Rocket Money, I once tracked every purchase for an entire month. It was very challenging. And at first, I panicked. Groceries, app subscriptions, coffee, random Amazon splurges. I do that a lot. But then patterns emerged. I saw where money was leaking, what felt like obligation versus joy, and where I was sabotaging myself emotionally. And I didn't cut everything. I made small little tweaks. Subscriptions that I did not use went away. Random coffee orders got consolidated. Savings became automated. The cumulative effect was enormous, but it came from awareness instead of ignoring everything and just panicking. I had to be aware in order to make that shift. And we all know that debt is another major stressor. And again, emotion drives it more than numbers. Research shows that people are more motivated to pay off debt when they visualize freedom and align it with goals, not guilt, not fear. Visualizing the life you want post debt is motivating because it taps into reward pathways in the brain. And here's a little hot air approved reframe for all of this money business. Your net worth is not your self worth. Every study, every psychologist, and book on money confirms this. Your ability to make decisions, track behavior, and align spending with values is what matters. There's a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and it emphasizes building systems that work automatically so your life feels easier and not stricter. It's not about perfection. It's about reducing friction, increasing clarity, and creating optionality. Now let's tackle the emotional side of money. There's that shame, there's always comparison, and a lot of fear. Social media makes it way worse. Your friend's vacation, which you're like, how can you even afford that? I know you, girl. Like, what are you doing? Your coworker's promotion that you probably feel like you should have got. Someone's new car that their parents bought for them. None of it actually measures your value. It triggers the limbic system, and suddenly you feel like a failure. Cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness research shows that awareness plus cognitive reframe helps. When you notice, I feel inferior, add a mental note. This is a comparison trick, not fact. My situation is valid. And then repeat it. Your brain can learn to notice triggers without falling into panic. And here's some practical application for all of this. Set up a monthly financial check-in. Review your accounts, your bills, your savings, and spending with curiosity, again, not shame. Check in with those patterns, adjust one small thing if you feel that you need to, and then celebrate your progress. Over time, your brain associates money management with empowerment instead of dread. Combine this with small automated wins, a recurring $50 transfer to your savings, automatic bill pay, or recurring retirement contributions, and suddenly your finances feel like a system and not a battlefield. Now let's briefly discuss investing, because for some, this is a New Year goal. Again, the psychology matters more than the math at first. Starting small is better than waiting for perfect timing. Diversification, low-cost index funds, and automated contributions reduce decision fatigue and emotional stress. If you're like me, I have no idea what any of that means, and that is why I worked with a financial planner a few years ago who handles all of that for me. And at the time, I kind of couldn't afford him, but that is why I needed him. I was like, okay, I think it was like $150 a month. And to me, that was a lot for a financial planner at the time. This was, probably 7 years ago. And I hated seeing that $150 come out of my account every month when I'm like, that could go towards my Botox that I also can't afford. But because I couldn't afford him, I needed him. So I invested in my financial literacy. He taught me a lot. We worked on setting a shitload of money aside. And now it's for years and years and years, it's just been automated. He has things being invested for me, a life insurance plan that also acts as an investment fund. He helped me set up all of these automated transfers just from my checkings to my savings, my Acorn account. The list goes on and on and on. My point here is if your goal is about saving and feeling financially secure, but you don't know how to do that, just like you might get a personal trainer, maybe get a financial planner as well, even if it's just for a few months to help you get set up. So if your goal for 2026 revolves around money, let's reframe it a little bit. Maybe this will help. Your money doesn't have to define you. Your goal isn't to be rich. It's to be someone who feels calm, clear, and empowered with money. That's a rich person. Someone who can look at their bank account without panic, automate what matters, align spending with your values, and still enjoy life. Because if your financial goals create anxiety instead of freedom, you're probably doing it wrong. Part 4, love, dating, and relationships, navigating the heart without panic. Well, now that we've talked about your brain, your body, and your money, let's talk about your heart, which I suppose also is part of your body, but in a different way. Love, dating, relationships, all the messy, wonderful, terrifying stuff that makes humans simultaneously ecstatic and absolutely panicked and fearing for their lives. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Great. Now Hot Air is going to lecture me about my emotional failures, and relax. That's not the plan. This is about tools, insight, and survival strategies for your heart and your nervous system in 2026. Again, my favorite saying today, without shame, without guilt, or toxic comparison. Relationships are emotionally and neurologically complex. Oxytocin, dopamine, cortisol, serotonin, your body chemistry is basically throwing a rager every time you text someone, every time you go on a date, or every time you argue with your partner. Emotional regulation is key here. You can't control other people, but you can manage your nervous system and your responses. That's where the real new year growth happens. Last year, right before I started this podcast, I got caught in a loop with someone that I liked or thought I liked. Every text or non-response would hijack my brain for hours. I would spiral, overanalyze, and feel like an absolute mess. Therapy and self-reflection taught me a very simple truth. I can't control his feelings, only my reactions. Easier said than done. So I implemented tiny little tools, labeling my emotions, setting boundaries, checking in with friends for perspective, and suddenly my nervous system didn't feel like it was under siege every time my phone buzzed. But that could be because I blocked him and deleted his phone number. But that shift doesn't make dating less exciting. It makes it survivable and even enjoyable. One thing I did, I was sitting around waiting for his text because he was in town. He was like, oh, maybe we'll hang out. Maybe we won't. I'm like, bro, you're a mile away. Are you kidding me? Like, you're debating on whether or not we're even going to spend time with each other. But thank you for inspiring me to start this podcast. But there was one time when I was like, I'm sitting here waiting around for his text. I'm looking at my phone. I'm waiting for my phone to vibrate. My phone is always on silent. I took that thing off silent. For me to do that, it was pretty wild. And then I said, you know what? No, I'm going to bed. I have things to do tomorrow. This person has not made me a priority. Did it give me a little bit of anxiety? Yes, but did it also make me feel empowered? I set a boundary there. I texted him and said, you know what? I'm going to bed. It's getting late. Maybe we'll meet up tomorrow or something. And then I put my phone back on silent and I put it away. It was scary, but empowering, and showed me that I can control my feelings. I can't control somebody else. Let's talk about some tools. First, attachment awareness. You might have heard this in therapy, on podcasts, maybe this podcast, or your weird friend who won't stop sending you memes about love, secure, anxious, avoidant, fearful. These attachment styles explain a lot of why relationships feel like emotional roller coasters. Research in developmental psychology and adult attachment theory shows that understanding your style allows you to notice patterns instead of being enslaved by them. For instance, if you're anxious, like me, you might text obsessively. You might fear abandonment or overinterpret signals. Simply noticing the pattern, like, my anxiety is activated here, interrupts the spiral. If you're avoidant, you might pull away when things get intense. Noticing it allows you to check if that's necessary or reactive. Awareness equals choice equals empowerment. So, a practical exercise here. When a relationship or dating scenario triggers intense emotions, pause and ask which attachment pattern is showing up. Label it, breathe, and then decide on one intentional action. Maybe it's giving a bit of space. Maybe it's expressing feelings calmly. Maybe it's journaling. This is cognitive behavioral therapy in action, recognizing the automatic response and choosing a deliberate, healthy action instead. Next, let's talk about communication tools, arguably the most important part of all of this. Most heartbreak and dating stress comes from miscommunication, unspoken expectations, or assumptions. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Hey, it's me. Guilty as charged. Evidence shows that couples who use I statements, clarify their needs, and check in regularly report higher satisfaction in their relationship. So, for example, instead of "you never text me back," try "I feel anxious when I don't hear from you, and I'd love to find a way to feel more connected." It's pretty simple. It's not that dramatic, in my opinion, and it reduces defensiveness. This works whether it's casual dating, committed relationships, or friendships. And something I've really been thinking about that I've said from the very beginning of this podcast that I learned from Sabrina Zohar, who is like my go-to relationship guru, is when you are communicating the things that you feel that you want and or need out of a relationship, whether it is very early on in the talking stages or the dating phase, or even when you're committed or engaged and married. Instead of holding things in, share what you are feeling. I am anxious, or I am used to a partner treating me this way, so it gives me anxiety when you do this because I feel da 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 da. It's almost like over communicating is better than holding it all in. And somebody who is intimidated by that, even if it's like your first date and if you're dating with intention, like why would you date somebody who wants to have 5 children if you don't want them at all? But isn't it better to find that out sooner rather than later? If someone is on your same page, obviously you're not gonna be like, so do you want kids? When do you want to get married? You don't want to interrogate them, but should that come up naturally in conversation? If there's a baby at the table and then you're like, oh, cute. And they say cute. And then you're like, oh, do you want kids? What, like if someone's scared of that, they're not ready for what you're ready for. I hope so. I hope that all made sense. So now let's talk self-care and boundaries, a huge New Year topic. Psychology research consistently shows that healthy boundaries predict relationship satisfaction. Boundaries are not selfish, they're nervous system preservation. They allow you to show up fully without the burnout. Examples like saying no to a text conversation when you're exhausted, or limiting time with draining friends, or communicating availability clearly. Those boundaries don't create distance, they actually create clarity. And now we're going to talk dating apps because we have to. We can't talk about dating without talking about dating apps. They are basically a behavioral psychology lab designed to hijack your dopamine systems. You got swipes, likes, and notifications, which activate reward pathways in the brain, but they don't always align with long-term emotional needs. The key is intentional engagement. Set limits. I'll check the app twice a day for 10 minutes, or I'll only engage if I feel genuinely interested, not bored. This reduces compulsive scrolling and protects your nervous system and your emotions and maybe someone else's emotions. I've been very guilty of spending like an entire weekend doom scrolling on all the dating apps, thinking that I'm being proactive, that I'm going to meet the love of my life. And by Sunday night, my mood was tanked. Not only did I not meet the love of my life, barely got any matches, I implemented limits, mindful engagement, and reflection on values. And suddenly the process felt much less like emotional Russian roulette and more like intentional exploration. Reward pathways still fire, but stress is lower. And frankly, I'm barely on any of these apps anymore. And when I am, I'm doing it intentionally. I'm checking to see before I swipe left or right if someone's values align with mine. But honestly, the last like 6 months, I kind of forgot I even had them on my phone. Here's another little hot air approved tip. Separate infatuation from compatibility. Chemistry feels urgent and exciting. Compatibility is calm, predictable, and sustainable. Research on relationship longevity shows that shared values, aligned goals and emotional regulation predict long-term satisfaction more than sparks alone. When setting 2026 goals, aim for connection that nourishes your nervous system, not just adrenaline. This is also something I've been thinking about a lot lately because you can love someone and be infatuated with them and be head over heels, right? And you could even be in a relationship with them for a year and be madly in love. But sometimes love is not enough and their values don't line up. The things they want out of life don't line up with yours. And it can also go the other way. You can have someone on paper that checks every single box that is like on your wavelength, but there's a bit of a spark missing. You kind of have to figure out what is more important for you, what values are most important, or is it that spark and that physical chemistry? Or is there the possibility of having both with a little bit of compromise? Another thing we have to talk about, heartbreak, because it's inevitable. And neuroscience shows that romantic rejection activates pain pathways in the brain. Literally, you feel physical pain. And coping strategies matter. Social support, self-care routines, reflection exercises, and mindful acceptance reduce the impact. Journaling about feelings, talking to friends, and engaging in movement are all evidence-based tools. Avoid rebound distractions as a fix. We've all done that before, but it's not a fix. They rarely address the underlying emotional needs. So, to sum up, 2026 relationship goals are not about finding the perfect person or getting 100% of your needs met or living in a romanticized fantasy. They're about self-awareness, communication, boundaries, and consistent reflection. Your nervous system learns that love is safe, mistakes are not catastrophic, and connection is rewarding. That's the foundation for healthy, romantic, and platonic, and familial relationships alike. Part 5, career growth and purpose. Moving forward without burnout. All right, we're hitting the work zone. Your career, your job, your purpose, whatever that word means to you this week. And let's be honest, January is when we all pull out our notebooks, we scribble promotion, raise, pivot, passion project, and somehow feel like failing if we don't immediately change our lives. Cue the guilt, cue anxiety, cue that quiet existential panic that hits around mid-morning-ish. But here's the truth. Career growth is not a new year magic spell. It's a combination of clarity, skill, relationships, and sustainable effort. And most importantly, emotional self-reflection. Your nervous system's going to dictate more about your progress than your 100-page career plan. So a few years ago, I set a January goal to completely overhaul and pivot my career in just 30 days. I mapped courses, reached out to people that I thought could connect me in the right direction, and planned a massive strategy overhaul. 3 days in, I panicked. I didn't know where to start. I felt behind. I spiraled into indecision. And what saved me? Breaking the process into tiny, achievable steps and focusing on alignment rather than speed. I realized career growth is not about radical overnight transformations. It's about consistent forward motion with intention. And that is backed by research in organizational psychology. Deliberate, incremental progress beats those dramatic leaps every time. So let's get into some of those tools. We'll start with clarity mapping. Sit down and map your current skills, your values, your goals. Ask yourself, what do I enjoy? What am I good at? What kind of environment energizes me? Studies show that people who pursue work aligned with intrinsic motivation, the things that genuinely interest them, have higher engagement, higher satisfaction, and higher longevity. This isn't a fluffy exercise. It's literally science, people. You're literally wiring your brain to notice opportunities that align with your strengths. So for example, if you love creating content, maybe your next career goal isn't a promotion at a desk job, but building a small portfolio or side hustle that leverages those skills. If leadership excites you, volunteer for small projects where you can practice managing people. Don't force a giant leap. Micro opportunities compound faster than those massive leaps and failures. Now let's talk networking, because no career grows in isolation. If it did, I'd be a billionaire by now. Neuroscience and social psychology shows that relationships activate reward circuits in the brain. They increase opportunities and reduce stress when navigating transitions. And networking isn't schmoozing at events with a fake smile. It's authentic connection if you let it be. Comment on someone's work, Send a meaningful note, offer help before asking for favors. Small, consistent interactions are more effective than one dramatic LinkedIn blast. I often reach out to people that I admire and I'll send like a short, genuine little note. It's usually like a DM or something on Instagram, or maybe there's a question in there, and they usually respond and we have a conversation and it leads to opportunities or new guests on the podcast that I would not have accessed otherwise. I didn't overthink it. I didn't do any grand gestures, just authentic engagement. And people are always like, how did you get these people on your podcast? And I'm like, I just said, hi, I like what you're doing. Like, let's talk. People appreciate that authentic engagement. Another tool is reflective goal setting. Instead of, I must get promoted this year, reframe it to, I will take consistent steps to expand my skills and visibility. Research shows that approach-oriented goals, focusing on progress rather than outcomes, reduces anxiety and increases persistence. So yes, you can set goals, but focus on actions that you can control, not just the outcomes that you technically can't. How will you get the promotion? What are the steps in between that you can work on? Not just, I want a promotion. And now let's address burnout because it's real. And we all know that high achievers, overthinkers, and ambitious people often sprint towards success and then hit exhaustion. Studies in occupational health psychology shows that chronic stress reduces productivity, creativity, and even cognitive performance. Tools to counteract this are micro breaks, digital boundaries, flexible work periods, and mindfulness interventions. Even 5 minutes of deep breathing at your desk is going to reduce your cortisol. Walking during meetings, gratitude reflection on work accomplishments, and intentional pauses improve performance without adding hours. And 2026 is a great time to pick up one or two high impact skills. Evidence shows that deliberate practice, which is focused, measurable, and feedback informed, is the key to mastery. Don't overload. Choose skill development aligned with your career goals. For example, if public speaking matters, schedule a weekly 5-minute practice. If writing is key, commit to one article per week or one chapter per week, depending on what you're writing. Consistency, not perfection, is the key. Another tool, accountability partners or mentors. Behavioral science confirms that external accountability increases goal adherence dramatically. But make sure it's supportive, not shaming. Weekly check-ins, reflections on progress, or shared goal tracking can keep you on track without turning your ambition into guilt. And career growth isn't just about promotions or prestige. It's also about compensation, financial literacy, and stability. Negotiation research shows that people consistently undervalue themselves. Samesies. Learning evidence-based negotiation techniques increases salary and confidence. Books like Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss give practical, psychology-based negotiation tools. Knowing your worth reduces stress and sets a foundation for long-term growth. And finally, purpose isn't about a single job or title. Research in positive psychology shows that meaning comes from contribution, connection, and personal growth. Your career goal in 2026 could be learning, mentoring, creating, or solving problems, not necessarily a corner office with a view. Focus on growth, curiosity, and resilience. That's how you sustain career satisfaction over years, not weeks. And now it's time for part 6, life maintenance, mindset, and closing rituals. Think of this as the polish on everything that we have covered, the part that turns all your January intentions into a nervous system friendly, sustainable, slightly fun, and totally hot air approved lifestyle for 2026. Let's start with mindset because nothing in this episode will matter. You can just turn it off. Well, I guess you listened this far, so keep listening, but none of it's going to matter if your brain keeps sabotaging you. Your default mental operating system is not optimized for calm, intentional progress. It is optimized for survival, threat detection, pattern recognition, social comparison, and instant reward. That means guilt, shame, self-criticism, and procrastination are built-in features, not flaws. But the good news is that you can hack them. One of the most powerful tools for mindset is reframing, which I've talked about, and I'll never not talk about it. Cognitive behavioral therapy research shows that how you interpret an event directly influences your stress response. So instead of thinking, I didn't accomplish my goal, I'm failing, Reframe it to, I learned something about what does not work for me, and now I can adjust it. It's very subtle, but science confirms that habitual positive reframing reduces anxiety, increases resilience, and improves your goal adherence. And if you can't think of a reframe, find my friend ChatGPT, have it help you out. Another mindset tool, micro rituals of control. Studies in behavioral psychology show that small, intentional routines can massively reduce cognitive load and stress. Things like morning journaling, 5-minute meditation, or a nightly reflection on wins provide your brain with a predictable structure. The nervous system loves predictability. It's soothing, it's grounding, and empowers you to tackle chaos everywhere. So, like I said in the last episode, if you listened, at nighttime, I try to sit down and think of 3 or 2, or sometimes it's just one thing that went well that day, one thing that I was happy about, and also things that I can look forward to the next day. That's it. It's not hours of journaling, it's just a little positive tweak. And focusing in on those small wins reinforces neural pathways for reward and motivation, the same circuits your brain lights up for actual achievement. However, I have noticed that sometimes when I get excited about a project or something I'm working on and I tell people, those neural pathways do get lit up. So it gives you the sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. That's why sometimes, like when I started this podcast, I didn't tell anybody until it was ready to go, until the social media was up and I had episodes lined up, because then I probably wouldn't have done it because my brain thinks I've already accomplished that just by talking about it. So there is kind of like a fine line there. Now let's talk self-compassion, because humans are brutal on themselves, especially at the start of the year. Research shows that treating yourself like you would a friend is going to improve emotional regulation and your persistence. Stop beating yourself up for failing resolutions. Start asking, how would I support a friend in this situation? You wouldn't say, bitch, you didn't even go to the gym, you fat cow. Like, sometimes we talk to ourselves like that. Sometimes I say that to myself, but I would never say that to a friend. So why would I say it to myself? I should be my best friend. So yes, ask yourself, how would I support a friend in this situation? The answer to that is what you should do for yourself. Even tiny acts of kindness towards yourself are going to reduce that cortisol and increase your motivation. Be kind to yourself. You are your best friend. End of story. Period. Another evidence-based tool is habit stacking for mindset maintenance. Again, this is from Atomic Habits. Attach a new mental habit to an existing routine. So maybe while you're brushing your teeth, you're going to repeat a mantra like, I am capable of small, consistent wins in your head because you're brushing your teeth, so you don't want to make a mess. Or while you're making coffee, reflect on one thing that you're grateful for. Tiny cognitive nudges train your brain to anticipate reward, motivation, and calm, all without forcing massive effort. Now, let's get practical about closing rituals for the end of 2025 and the start, which is now, of 2026. Rituals give your nervous system a sense of structure, meaning, and closure. You can make them as simple or as elaborate as you want, but the psychology is the same. They create a predictable symbolic transition from one phase to another. So like I said before, I have these rituals every month at a full moon. I do get a little woo-woo with it sometime, but I use the full moon almost as like a symbol. Oh, it's time to check in with yourself. What do you want to accomplish next month? What can you let go of? What didn't quite go according to plan? And how can you use that data to set better goals for yourself in the future? Now, if you're doing it for the whole year, you can think, what surprised me in 2025? What challenged me? What brought me joy? What did I learn about myself? Then identify 1 or 2 patterns that you want to release, like resentment or shame or overworking, and 1 or 2 intentions to carry into 2026, like patience, curiosity, healthier boundaries, financial clarity. Research shows that reflection plus intention setting significantly increases commitment to your goals. And another hot air approved tip, celebrate those micro wins, which I also said on the previous episode. Every single small action, automated savings, a workout completed, a tough conversation that was handled with grace. That's what I'm trying to do lately. 1 networking email that was sent. This compounds over time. And neuroscience shows that rewarding the brain for all of those small little wins is going to reinforce neural pathways for persistence and joy. You don't need a viral Instagram post to feel accomplished. Your brain does the work for you. And self-care integration is critical here. Sleep, hydration, movement, social connection, and boundaries are not just optional lifestyle extras. They're literally the scaffolding for everything that we have discussed today. Mental health, physical fitness, money management, relationships, careers. Evidence from health psychology shows that neglecting these foundational elements sabotages all other goals. Think of them as maintenance for your nervous system, not indulgence. Like truly, get some sleep, okay? Close your eyes. After this, go take a nap. And finally, creating a 2026 toolbox. By this point in the episode, you have heard multiple evidence-based tools: habit stacking, reflective journaling, value-based budgeting, attachment awareness, mental contrasting, self-compassion, micro breaks, movement, networking, sleep prioritization, gratitude practice, and closing rituals. I am out of breath. Your job is to pick the ones that resonate most, not all of them, and commit to consistency, not perfection. You don't need every tool, just enough to keep your nervous system calm and your momentum going. So here is the final takeaway. 2026 is not about perfection, and it's not about viral transformations or external validation. It's about nervous system friendly, science backed, practical, sustainable actions that support your brain, your body, your money, your heart, and your career. It's about awareness, reflection, ritual, and micro action. It's about celebrating wins, embracing the setbacks as data instead of beating yourself up, and moving forward intentionally without shame. I tell everyone, you can literally do anything you want. If you woke up tomorrow and said, I want to be an astronaut, why not? Why couldn't you do it? If it was actually something you wanted to do, you can start that business. You can take those steps. You can start planning. You can write that book. You can write that script and pitch it to Jimmy Kimmel. Like, I have friends that do that. Like, come on. You can do anything. You can write a song for Beyonce. You can become a doctor. You can break up with that shitty boyfriend that you've been dragging around with you and find the true love of your life. There's nothing you cannot do. The only limitations are the ones that society and we put on ourselves. So truly, take 2026, grab it by the horns, and fuck this shit up. And that is a wrap on Hot Air's New Year Better Me, New Year More Me kind of vibe. We really did cover a lot today. And if you remember one thing out of all of this, it's that you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to overhaul everything overnight. And you definitely don't need to compare yourself or your progress to anybody else. And if you love this episode, share it with your friends and your fam who you think could use the information. Also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod, and head to my website to submit your listener stories, topic suggestions, or grab some cute merch, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com. And here's your homework. Pick one thing from today's episode, just one of them. Journaling, gratitude, financial tracking, the list goes on and on and on. Just pick one thing and actually try using it this week. The more that you practice, the easier your nervous system will cooperate. And the more that 2026 will feel like your year and not a checklist that you are going to dread. So Happy New Year. Let's kick the shit out of 2026 in the best way possible. I mean that in a good way. Let's kick the shit out of this year. Like, why not? Let's do the damn thing. And thank you again for listening. Thank you for spending this time with me. I cannot wait to share 2026 with you all. And I'm just so grateful and so excited to continue to watch the podcast grow. I just found out I'm in the top 10% now of all podcasts in the entire world, which I just got full body chills. Am I going to cry? No, I'm not going to cry. We don't have time for that today. We got things to do. But like, what a fucking cool way to end 2025, go into 2026, to be in the top 10% out of over almost 4 million podcasts, which, you know, still puts me in the top 350,000 podcasts. So there's still ways to go, but like, we're moving, we're grooving, and I can't do it without people that listen, that support the show, that get what I'm trying to put out there, that are sticking with me and sticking with Hot Air. So thank you. Happy New Year. 2026 is like, it's my year. Okay. So just be prepared for the craziness to get even crazier in the best way possible. So I think that's it until next time. So I will see you next Tuesday.